One thing which I find a bit overhyped is the whole kind of doomsday scenario of the AI singularity. I really see AI as a great way to accelerate and augment humans. And the black box syndrome, especially if you're building your own product, can be lethal because you have no idea exactly what's inside the product.
What's harder, building tech or changing behavior?
Changing behavior, for sure. Humans are very unpredictable. Don't go for the job titles and the kind of the proxies of success. Think of success as what you achieve and it will speak by itself.
Hello everyone, my name is Abdurehman Saleemi. Welcome back to another episode of Tech Finds Tech. Today we have a wonderful guest with us, Olivier. Hi Olivier, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. Good to see you.
All right, Olivier, before we start, can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
So I'm Olivier Beau de Loménie. I'm a technologist at, in my DNA, I've been doing technology for the last, 25, 30 years in lots of different kind of contexts, both in part of a big corporations, but also as a co-founder of quite a few different startups and scale-ups. And so that's, I guess, why I'm here today to speak with you guys.
Thank you, Olivier. So Olivier, if you start from the start of your career, you started with the Oracle and you have gone from Oracle to Ocado's early days to founding and advising. What pushed you from big company execution into building and scaling products?
So first of all, when I was at Oracle, I was fortunate enough to be there in the kind of early days of the internet revolution. I was there in the late 90s, at the time when internet was just kind of flourishing. People were just trying all kinds of things. A bit of what's going on today with AI, where you're seeing all kinds of different things spring up. So when I was at Oracle, actually, I was building my own product within the Oracle organization. So I was very lucky to be able to do that at the time. And they were kind of pushing some of their employees to actually try new things and build new things. But ultimately, this is what I was really enjoying, was to build my own thing, to build things from scratch, not necessarily be part of a 1,000 developer team, which is what you have at Oracle. And I was doing a bit of both, and the bit that I really enjoyed was actually building my own stuff. So naturally, that drove me towards the world of startups, which is really what you do there. I mean, you start from scratch and build your product and hope for the best. And it's really what I was looking to do at the time. And that kind of pushed me in that direction.
So is it, so just a question. So is it like Oracle culture pushed you towards building your products because everyone around you was so passionate about the technology? So you got the idea from the culture, or is it something that it comes from within yourself that, okay, I need to build my own product?
It's from my own experience. So because I was lucky enough to be able to see both sides, be part of the bigger, building this. In fact, I was in the manufacturing applications division of Oracle. So I was working on their, ERP software, and I could see, there you would work on Oracle Forms. You would have like that very tiny little piece of functionality that you would work for a couple of weeks, and comparing with. Comparing that with what I was doing on my own, building my own product, where things would go a lot faster, where I was much more responsive to my user kind of feedback. That's the bit that I was really enjoying. And having that experience kind of pushed me in the direction of, okay, this is really what I enjoy doing. Let's just, focus on that. And I realized that Oracle was kind of an oddity for me to be able to do that within Oracle. And so naturally I had to kind of leave. And also there were other factors that pushed me to leave Oracle, because I was also keen to leave Silicon Valley. At the time, I was in their headquarters in Redwood Shores, and I was keen to come back closer to home in Europe.
All right, that sounds really amazing. So you have helped turn back of the napkins ideas into real SaaS products. What separates nice idea from something that actually creates market value?
That's a very interesting question. I think, indeed, when you start a new business and you have an idea, it might be nice and you think it's nice and you really believe it's very much a leap of faith. And you start by building what's called an MVP. So you have your own assumptions about what the user is looking for. You think they need that. So you build that, and the quicker you can get something in front of that user, the sooner you will get some real feedback. And I think that's really what is critical about that phase, that you have the nice idea, you think it's a good idea, you need to validate it as soon as possible. And for that, you need to build that MVP and build it in such a way that it can evolve. That's kind of the essence of being agile. Is that ability to build something that you know is not the finished product, but it has to mature into that finished product, and it might go into directions you don't really anticipate until you get that feedback from the real world. And that's how really you build your product. It's so you start from that nice idea, which leads you to an MVP, and then the nice idea will be kind of validated and will be transformed into something real that really will help your users through their kind of ongoing feedback. And that ability to respond to that feedback quickly is really what makes the product development process efficient and get to yeah, that I think that's a good way to put it.
So, Olivier, so given the current era we are living, so we are living in a hyper-paced environment where people could actually build a MVP level product on the weekends using the AI. So, do you think that with the invent of AI and AI assisting developers in shipping faster, the market from so the product market time, like from developing the product and making it to market, it has evolved and it has reduced, and now building products and testing ideas has become much easier than those times in which you were building product.
It's it's a very interesting question because uh, obviously it's much easier and much faster to create that prototype. The question is whether the prototype is an MVP. And let me go into the difference between the two. The prototype is something that is kind of throwable. That is just I want to try it. I'm going to show it to a few internal users or people that can give me some kind of feedback, but it's not the foundation of your product. The MVP is actually going to be the foundation of your product. The key difference here is the IP, is your control over, well, it's one of the difference, but I think that and especially when you create a prototype using some of these tools like Lovable or one of these kind of quick um, uh, quick ways to actually develop new apps. It's You don't necessarily understand exactly what's inside the product, so it's great if you want to do something quick that can work very well. But if you need to make it evolve, as I was describing earlier, if you need to scale it and you encounter bottlenecks, things that are kind of under the hood, you're still facing a black box. And the black box syndrome, especially if you're building your own product, can be lethal because you have no idea exactly what's inside the product. So it's very difficult to make it evolve into something that where you want it to go. Now, this said, I've been extremely impressed by I will name Lovable because I've been using Lovable, but we've been building a piece of functionality with Lovable, which is not core, so it's okay to actually not really understand the IP, and it's been extremely useful. So I think it depends what you're trying to build, really. But ultimately, if you don't have control over the IP of your product, and this is actually something you want to change, you really you're it's going to be nice short term, but long term it might actually hit back in a big way.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. So, uh, I try to use other tools as well, which is Cloud Code and the Open AI Codex. So all these tools, they don't really know what they are doing until unless I architect the decision. I explain the decision to them. So I think so. The main role of humans is like to architect decisions and inform them about the decisions, and they can come into the execution layer and they can execute those ideas, but still it will remain kind of prototype. You cannot say it a complete MVP because, as you mentioned, that the MVP should be able to evolve. So for application to be able to evolve, it should be designed and uh, architect perfectly. So the some foundation and the solid base it has.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I think AI it's like what makes a good developer, right? It's not necessarily the one that knows how to program the function in 10 lines instead of 20. It's the one that has that kind of uh, understanding of the whole system, what it's meant to do, how every pieces in the puzzle fit together, which one should be outsourced, which one can be used as a library, which one should I really focus on because this is where my core IP is, going back to that IP discussion. And that kind of system understanding is what I think, humans can bring to the table, and they can be augmented by an AI that will speed up and make the whole kind of nitty-gritty coding a lot faster. I think that's what you meant, and I completely agree with that.
Yep, sounds good. So moving to the next question, you build Ocado's homegrown platform before modern tools chains exist. What did that era tech teach you about building scalable system?
Yes, so scalable systems is that I'll go a bit into the fundamentals, basically. And the best way to think about it is to think about a motorway where you can scale the system by adding more lanes to the motorway, and therefore having from 2 to 3 to 4, you just add more infrastructure, you add more servers, you add more bigger database, faster CPU, you name it. So you kind of you know build more infrastructure, bring it more humph. That's one way to scale your system. It's a kind of brute force, and it's quite expensive because, of course, every time you add a lane to your motorway, you have to pay for it. The alternative is you change the car, and you make sure that your car goes from a motorcycle to a 2-seaters to a 4-seaters to a bus. And that's where scalability means that you have to be able to get into that your software, which is that car, and see where the bottlenecks are. Is it that you need to add an extra gear so it can go faster? Is it that you need to add that extra seat so you can bring more people on board, etc.? And again, that's the kind of thing which you face as the product grows. And we were talking about IP to be able to to adapt to different functionalities, but you also have to adapt your software as it grows in terms of for it to scale, and to be able to poke inside, understand where the bottlenecks are, and fix those is the most efficient way. I mean, the alternative way, which is the one I was describing earlier around adding the lines, goes by itself. But it's once you should already have optimized the efficiency of your car first.
That's really wonderful to know. So what I've understood from this, so you are saying that what you have learned is like, instead of thinking about the whole system, and we need to think about the components of the system. So we need to scale components first rather than scaling the whole system together, right?
Yes, you need to be able to identify where the bottlenecks are. So
Yeah.
usually when you scale a system, and you look at where it slows down, basically where as soon as you get some traffic, things you get some red lights appearing, and if your website or your application grinds to a halt, you're a bit at a loss. What's going on? Where is it? Where did it crash? So, and usually it crashes in one very specific area of your code where there's something that just doesn't scale. And to be able to kind of go down the stack, identify exactly where that bottleneck is actually quite a fun game to do. I mean, it's like looking for a needle, in the haystack, and then once you've nailed it, and you can fix it, because once you know what the problem is, usually there's a very easy way or simple solution to it, and then you see suddenly it unlocks the bottleneck, and the traffic can just flow, and it scales again until you hit the next bottleneck. Or actually, by looking for that bottleneck, you'll find some other smaller bottlenecks, and you'll kind of fix them as well. So there's a sense of being able to enter your software, really understand, and this is where, again, if you have the full control of the tech stack, and you can put these probes into your software, so you can see where these bottlenecks are. And what I mean by seeing is usually you'll see suddenly a process that takes a lot longer to execute than you would have anticipated, or that normally, it executes, within a few milliseconds, and then suddenly, when you start having that bottleneck, it slows down, and it slows down everything in the chain. So being able to kind of identify where these kind of these blockers are is the first thing to do to scale your system. Of course, that means that everything else has been done. So you've optimized your indices in your database. There are some very basic things which should have been done upstream because they are part of tuning the system. But as you build a new product, sometimes you leave some of these bottlenecks inside, and these are the killers, usually the real blockers, because then you really need to kind of adapt, change you might have to change something in your architecture, isolate, put it as an asynchronous process rather than synchronous, things like this, which will allow you to optimize your system and make it more scalable.
Yep, that sounds really the architect way of doing things, and that's really sounds amazing. So moving to the next question, you have built and led engineering plus product teams in both startups and corporates. What does a high performance tech team actually look like?
I think my experience with teams and it's an experience also based from my own kind of behavior facing be- enjoying myself with doing my work, is a sense of ownership and commitment to what I'm doing. So it's I see very much the work of a development team like um, I guess any small team that actually is building something. Think of it as a kitchen in a restaurant, or a bunch of maybe that's or a workshop in Renaissance Florence, where you had the painter and all these helpers that would make sure that the painting would be up to the reputation of the workshop. And so everybody feels like they own part of that painting, or everybody in that kitchen feels that, they can't mess up. I've got to deal with a dessert, and you're, dealing with the main, and everything has to be perfect. And the fact that I own the dessert means that my name is on it. if it's if it's a terrible dessert, I'm going to fail that meal, and I will feel responsible for it. I think so. That's one of the things which I think is critical, is to that everybody in the team knows their role and know how critical it is to the overall success of the team. So, and you as the team leader need to make sure that this is very clear to everybody, that they have that feeling, that sense of ownership, and I think from that, if that is genuine, everything else will follow. Everybody will want to do a good job. They will feel responsible for making sure that what they do fit with the rest of the team, and there is a sense uh, of of collaboration that should arise, because we're not also we're all working together. I've got my part. I'm dealing with the dessert. You're dealing with the main, and so on and so forth. So that dynamics is also important. The fact that if I know what I'm responsible for, I will not. I need to make sure that works with your bits, and so on and so forth, and we can. So that's one area. I would say the other bit is creating an atmosphere or a culture where it's okay to fail, it's okay not to know. We are all humans, and we're here to learn as much as to deliver, and to create that kind of culture where everybody's there to help each other, to where there's no um, there's a lot of bienveillance, as we say in French, where there's a lot of goodwill. And so that's it, but it seems like, how do you still deliver? I mean, there's still, and I think here it's also probably another aspect is making sure you have clear objectives. There's a sense of, that the finishing line is clear.
Yep. So what I've understood is like sense of clarity and ownership, clear objectives, and a culture to help each other. So that's what make teams high performing teams, right?
In a nutshell, yeah. And
Yep.
and
Sounds
I think also hiring the right people. You have to make sure that this gels
yeah.
well. And going back to the discussion we were also having earlier, uh, get system thinkers, if possible. I mean, it's not always, but the people that have that understanding of how what they do fits within the bigger picture.
Hmm. I think so. That's make totally a big difference if someone on your team is a system thinker and can organize big pieces together and to show the full picture or even the part of the picture that you are missing out. So definitely. So move to the next questions. Many companies talk about digital transformation, but few succeed. Why do transformation projects fall in the real world?
So my experience with digital transformation failures is quite diverse because I've seen it from both from a startup standpoint, startups that actually did not went past Series A, but also at the big corporates level. So starting with the startup, I think it's usually a question of uh, getting your business model right. So I've yet to see a system, a startup that fails because the software failed. Um, and not because I was, actually in charge of the software, but more because I was also in charge of the actual business. We as a co-founder. So, and when you start going back to your earlier question about having an idea, you have an idea, you don't know whether the idea will make money, and for a startup to succeed, it has to bring the money. And you have usually a lot of um, wishful thinking about how that money will come in. And if these don't materialize, you have to pivot. And if those pivot don't materialize, you're dead. And that's usually what happens. And the on the big corporates, the what I've seen is more a question of big corporates are sometimes a bit um, they they take a road and then management changes the overall uh, I would say, leadership changes. There's a lot of, every 4 years, there's a new CEO that comes in, or the head of that division changes, has different ideas. And then suddenly
Yes.
something that was kind of a top priority becomes less of a priority, and people don't care. And the people actually under the old leadership leave as well. And you end up with a completely different organization, which has a very different strategy, and the whole thing just falls apart. That's very
Yep.
sad when that happens.
Yep. Yep. That's totally makes sense. So you advise PE firms on due diligence and value creation. What are the biggest tech blind spots you see during diligence?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
You advise PE firms on due diligence and value creation. What are the biggest tech blind spots you see during diligence?
So on there's the usual kind of suspects, which is every time you do a due diligence, it's all about security, about risks assessment. So you will assess that, and you usually have some kind of a checklist that you want to cover. Is it ISO certified? Does it have a stock? All these different questions around the security. Then there's the scalability as well. You want to check. So these are, I would say, the standard kind of playbook of a due deal when you are for a P firm. What is usually more relevant is if you understand what is the overall investment thesis for for that specific transaction, and then you can really dig into the specifics of whether that thesis will be is likely to succeed or not, given the technology landscape of the target. And think of it like, let's say I want to add, I'm buying this business as an add-on to my existing SaaS. Now the question is, you want to really understand how that new piece of functionality, which I'm going to bring to my existing SaaS, how is it going to integrate within the existing set of features that I'm offering to my clients? Is it going to be a standalone, or is it going to be completely integrated, or is it going to be something in between? And depending on where that kind of strategy is, or what that vision is in terms of how the two businesses will coexist, you'll have a very different kind of roadmap for the product. And that's the kind of thing you want to nail.
That sounds amazing. And last question of this segment would be, if you were starting a new SaaS business today, which category would you bet on and why?
I wish I knew. That's, you know, there are lots of different areas which fascinates me, which I think, could be extremely, which still need, some kind of disruption. One area which I've always been kind of thinking of is education. It's one area. The internet has been such a vector of such a powerful way to diffuse knowledge. What I'm yet to see is, there's like the Khan Academy has made some changes. What we're seeing is AI is an incredible um, teacher, and I wonder how that's going to impact down the line the way we teach our kids and how we self-educate throughout our lives. And that's definitely one area which I would love to explore further. But I have nothing concrete yet to talk about, unfortunately.
No, I can completely get your point. So just to add one more bit, so you mentioned that education is the place which you want to explore more and in which you want to build SaaS. And if we talk about today's AI, do you think that this AI would evolve into something that will make education more accessible and more a lower cost thing for the people coming in the next generations?
The well, it's I don't know about you, but I find it extremely amazingly powerful in terms of uh, accessing information, education, anything. You ask, whatever LLM you're using, and it'll bring, these incredible, extremely uh, good answers to your questions. And it's especially when you're talking about kind of greenfield type questions about history or science, you name it. So I think it's a question of for maybe for our generation, because we we've gone through the stages of learning how to learn, and we can use those tools. The question is, how do we teach our kids to really also uh, have that structure, and not get lost into there's so much out there that it's very easy to kind of uh, how the curriculum are always structured with, math 101, 102, 103. You need to go through those steps sometimes to actually build those foundations. And then at some point, you've got enough of those foundations that you can just go and explore on your own. Some people do that right away. Great. Some others need more guidance. And the question is where is that balance? I'm not sure whether I'm answering your question here. I'm just kind of, rambling on my own, but it's this is where my kind of some of my thoughts are.
That's amazing. I really loved talking about tech with you because you spent your years of life between the heart of the tech. So it was nice talking about all this stuff to you. So Olivier, we are now moving to the next segment, and the rule in the next segment is you cannot think. As soon as I stop asking question, you have to answer it. So are you ready?
Okay. Shoot.
Okay. So what's harder, building tech or changing behavior?
Changing behavior for sure. Humans are very unpredictable.
So, early stage or scale up? What's more fun to build?
Scale up, and I very much since I enjoy the interaction between the user and the product developer, and it's really at the stage of the scale up that you get that feedback, that constant feedback that guides where the product is going.
Best trait in a founder.
Sorry.
Best trait in a founder.
um I was hesitating actually, because on that question, is it pragmatism or adaptability or both? And the reason here is that you need to be able to adapt to a changing, use case, to a changing business as you build it, and you need to do that in a very pragmatic way with whatever means you've got. So the two go hand in hand.
Most overrated tech trend today.
Which one will it be? Is it the metaverse or the blockchain? There are so many of these techs that actually have somewhat delivered on their promises, but have yet to actually really deliver. One thing which I find a bit overhyped is the whole kind of doomsday scenario of the AI singularity. I really see AI as an augment, as a great way to accelerate and augment humans. I don't see that as a threat at all, and maybe I'm a bit naive.
Most underrated tech skill today.
The one we spoke about, the system thinking, the especially as AI, is doing the kind of nitty-gritty development. It's really necessary to get developers that have that kind of system thinking, understand the ecosystem, see where its potential bottlenecks are, understand where the product might evolve, so they can anticipate some of the they can anticipate the pivots or some of the evolution that product will go through.
If you had to rewrite your career in one sentence, what would it be?
The the actually the I think it's getting to the core of a problem and finding a simple and elegant solution to it.
One piece of advice you would give to your younger self entering tech.
Trust your trust your guts in a sense. Go do what you really enjoy, and don't necessarily try to follow the career path as it is being prescribed. Don't go for the job titles and the kind of the proxies of success. Think of success as what you achieve, and it will speak by itself.
What keeps you optimistic about the future of technology?
The fact that it's a bit like Russian dolls. As you unlock one, you open a new one and you see another one. And there's this kind of domino effect where one technology leads to another and you see new applications and see new potential. So there's something very, it's like opening a door that takes you to another door and takes you to another path. So I'm quite optimistic on that front.
All right, Olivier, that's it from my side for today. Thank you so much for explaining everything in detail. I have learned quite a bit, and I'm pretty sure that our audience will learn a lot from this podcast episode. Thanks again for joining us. I hope everyone will enjoy this episode. Until then, keep finding tech that finds you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you. Likewise, Olivier.